This is the theme of Setback in Blood Out. Family setback. Michael's brother is killed. Select frames. And so, right before that, um, Michael Savion asked about the girl, and he said that the girl died, and then there was a blank face on him as well. So we're looking at Michael Savion and his brother David. David is there to ask for help. And I thought to myself as I was going over my notes regarding this, that David is in a gang, he's a drug dealer, and he's visiting his brother at the precinct, right? At the cop place, right? And I thought to myself, it's interesting that he's crossing territories here. And you're going to see that throughout the film analysis as well, and throughout the field, that there's a mentioning of crossing, mentioning of territories. You know, someone has the territory of North America or South America, and so there's Europe at play. But I thought to myself, this is very interesting that this is a drug dealer coming into a cop precinct. I understand that he's coming to see his brother, but there's nothing on the inside of him that is saying, that is shouting out, maybe I should not, as a drug dealer, go into the precinct where cops dwell and do their business, right? And so Michael is hostile to his younger brother, and it's normal in a sense that he doesn't want to be seen with his brother. He doesn't want to be seen with a drug dealer because it could affect how he conducts his business, especially if he's going out on runs to shut down meth labs, right? To shut down any other type of drug houses, trap houses, anything like that. And so the brother coming here and talking to Michael Savion is troubling. It is sort of not a safe space, and it just defies all logic. So they are talking to each other here. We see the badge. It's clear that he's still a cop, of course. And David is struggling. He wants to get out. He met this woman, Gloria, and she wants to get married, but she won't get married to him until he gets out. You get out of the drug game, out of the gang, the gang banging. And so he's basically wanting to get out of his own setback. So somewhere he made a decision to begin selling drugs. He doesn't look like he's old enough, so he might have started when he was a teenager. And so he thought about a decision that he wanted to get into drug running, right? Become a drug dealer, also become a gang member, because we're going to see later that he's going to have to jump out. And so he's saying in his mind, I don't want to be in this setback anymore. I met someone. I can live a better life than this. She wants to get married, but she has a condition, and so I have to leave. Can you help me? And Michael Savion's character is still very much skeptic. He's skeptical of him, even when he tells Billy, his partner, he's saying that Michael is not in trouble. Michael is trouble. And so that suggests something about his mindset concerning his brother. And that also suggests something about how many times David has disappointed him to the point that he just doesn't feel anything anymore. And they're mentioning here that David wants to give their mother's ring to Gloria, right? And it's almost like dishonoring their mother to give their ring, to give that kind of ring to another woman, especially because Michael doesn't know the woman, has never seen a woman, and basically suspects that David is not actually serious about the thing that he wants to do. Regardless, they sort of face off, right? They face off as two brothers confronting their issues. So this is where David is showing the ring. So he's sort of proving to his brother that he wants out. He wants out of the setback. Now, when we say he wants out of the setback, we're basically meaning that he wants out of the gang culture, out of that hustling life. And so Michael, looking at his younger brother hold the ring, sort of convinces him that he is actually willing to let this go. That's why he says, come stay with me. I love you. And so he's not missing his opportunity here to even appeal to his own younger brother. So somewhere he's convinced, and he must not, in order to have that kind of belief system about David not being in trouble, that he is trouble. Again, somewhere he must have felt that David is just not changeable, not winnable. But at this moment, holding that ring, there's some sympathy. But there's some sympathy for his brother, and his heart changes, his mind changes. So they are being watched. This is a person, his name is Sticks, and he's the one who's actually going to tell the higher ups, or the gang bosses, that David is meeting with a cop. And so we're going to see a lot of watching. We're going to hear people say, I'm watching you, but we're going to also see a lot of watching. And what watching does is it gives you that kind of third eye, or it gives you the writer director is sort of helping us see the main characters through the lens of an individual character who doesn't quite know what's going on, but just assumes, because of common lore about gang culture, about snitching, being a stool pigeon, that if he's meeting with someone, it's automatically he's snitching. He hasn't asked him a question. He doesn't talk to him personally. He doesn't try to get something out of him. The fact that the brother, Michael, has on a badge and a gun, and David is talking to his brother, is enough for Sticks. And again, this is the wider view of watching these two interact with each other. There's a lot that could be said here in terms of what each other is, what's suggested. Remember, with the previous frame, they are facing off. But with this frame here, we see Michael's head lowered. And we haven't seen his head lowered since he took off his his tactical headgear, and we saw the vulnerability of him when his head was lowered. So somewhere, somehow, there's something in what David is saying as a younger brother that's making him feel vulnerable to the point that he has to lower his head. Now, there may be some kind of history of him lowering his head and feeling vulnerable, and then ending up being disappointed, and then feeling like he had to put back on a defensive posture. One lady that he's going to run into is Anya, towards the middle, and she's going to be a Fed, undercover as well, not connected to Michael. And she's basically, talking about her own vulnerability and not being let down. So you often see this kind of head lowering with Michael Savion, in contrast to when he raises his head and is kind of like in a defiant mode. So here's the phone that David is going to answer, and this is the phone call that's going to actually lead to his death. The interesting thing about this phone call is it is again preceded by Sticks on the phone. And he's watching David and his brother Michael, and he's saying to whomever on the phone, "We got a problem." So as soon as you say that without getting enough understanding of what the problem is, you immediately create a setback that's going to influence and have an effect on everyone else. This phone is going to ring, and David is going to answer it, and it's going to be a trap for him, and he's not going to know that it is going to be his death, meaning that he is killed early in the movie. So that tells you that that's a writer director prerogative, and it is a way to use maybe a technique, a plot technique to motivate Michael, to surprise him, to motivate him to find out what happened. But regardless, this is the phone call that's going to lead to his death. So he's on the phone with his partner, Anthony. And Anthony is basically saying something about meeting somewhere at a spot, quick pickup. It's going to be $5 bills. And he's using money to bait to get him out of the house. Now, this is contrary to what David was saying to his brother, the cop brother, Michael, that he wants to get out. And, you know, when you are in setback, you often are not really aware of the fact that you're in setback. You're just feeling inconvenienced, right? But if you make a decision and say, you are not going to do this thing right here, whatever this thing is. As soon as he made the decision to want to get out, he should have gone with his brother and let his brother put him in some kind of protective custody or something like that. And that's his missed opportunity, which is going to result in a punishment of being sort of branded as a snitch. And then he's going to feel the pain of his decision when they are jumping him out. And then, of course, the pain ends in the boss shooting him. So that means that he can't be corrected. He can't get into recovery or restoration or advance. He is cut off right before he can be corrected. So it would have been better for him to go and live with his brother, so then he could go through the correction process and then overcome his setback. But that's not going to be the case for him. So this is Anthony, whom Michael Savion will meet later, but this is David's partner, who is also part of the gang. And he has some kind of conversation. He's the one who's on the other end of the phone, and his look is one of maybe concern. Maybe he doesn't even know the full scope of everything, because once they get to the spot, the boss tells him to step aside. So maybe on some level he didn't even know that it was going to go down the way that it will go down. But there's some kind of concern in his eyes. So David is essentially walking to the spot that Anthony told him to meet him at. And again, it's going to be a trap. And suddenly these lights on the cars come on, and these two men are standing, waiting to see who's going to come out of the car. Now they know who they work for. It's obvious it's going to be the boss and his number two, and then all of the crew. But it's still a surprise that you are meeting at a spot, and then all of a sudden it turns, kind of deadly. So I want you to notice the people surrounding him, and notice the woman with the leather gear. And I'm just going to give you a sort of like a hint. She's the Fed who is undercover. And it's very interesting to me that when she finally meets Michael Savion, and he says that Zed, who is in the gray shirt in front of David, that he killed his brother. He killed David, but she never says anything. She never asks which brother, who the person was, right? And so maybe she is so, maybe her face is just as blank that her focus is to gain as much intel concerning the situation, play a role. So that means she's setting herself back, play a role of girlfriend or part of the enterprise, part of the enforcer enterprise. Because if she's standing side by side, then she's like an enforcer herself, right? Because the guy who is pointing, he is Elias, he's number 2, and the guy in the gray shirt in front of David, he is Zed, he is the main boss. And so we have this group here surrounding David. So Anthony is told to move to the side. Okay. They surround him, calling him a snitch. So, and, David says, I'm not a pigeon, but he just wants out. And Zed is essentially saying, you're still a dead man. You know the code. So immediately when you enter these environments, these contexts, you have immediately created a setback for yourself. It's not like you can clock in and clock out. It's not like you can turn in your resignation letter. David is missing something in his logical thinking, that he thought that he could get in and get out whenever he wanted to. But it doesn't work like that. Once he gives over his free will and sells his soul to become a gang member, the only way out is by death. But what you see here is this crowding around what they are calling a snitch, and that whenever there's a snitch, there's a global understanding of what a snitch is, right? And that if there's a snitch in the midst, then that's a setback for us. And we got to resolve that setback. We can't trust it to be what it is the person is saying it is. The person is saying I'm not a snitch. I have a reputation. And he's appealing to Zed that I've done this for you. I've done this for you. Even when my mother died, I was doing this for you. So it's like he's in a courthouse, and Zed is the judge, and Elias is the bailiff, and all the other people are like the jury people. Okay, the jury pool. And so he's standing here appealing for his life, pleading his case, and basically suggesting, I was talking to my brother. He's no snitch, but his brother is still the cops. And when he crossed the territory to go into the cops' precinct, he should have understood. So somewhere on his journey, he missed an opportunity to learn truly about what it is that he was getting himself into. You're going to see the contrast to Michael when he decides to go undercover. There's a lot of knowledge that he displays, that he talks, that he demonstrates through fighting, that he understands. And I'm quite sure that he got that through training. He got that through just being a cop, being exposed. It could be age as well. The hastiness of David to enter something before he fully understood it. Or even if he understood it, he just didn't accept it as what it actually is. That if you blood in, you have to blood out. There is no in between. It doesn't matter that he's met someone and he wants to get married to that person, and she tells him, you got to change and get out before I marry. He's looking at that argument as being superior to the main argument that blood in and blood out. And that when they shoot him, they have served on him the ultimate rebuttal. I teach college English, and I always teach argument at the second level. And so the building blocks of argument are claims, counterclaims, evidence, and rebuttal. And there's already an existing argument when you are part of these crews that you jump in, we beat you up, you jump in, and then you remain, and then you is blood in, and then if you want to get out, it's blood out. And so again, there's some kind of missed opportunity with him that he just did not get a good understanding about what he got himself into. And that's many people who get into games, to games. They are motivated by some vulnerability. Maybe they were going home and a couple of gang members jumped them, so they decided to join the opposing gang for some kind of strength, right? Instead of learning how to defend themselves as the obvious thing they should learn how to do, and then fighting those guys on their own. No, what they do is they hook up with other people so that they can feel stronger. And so this is him appealing to Zed as the main boss and the bailiff and the jury for his life. So again, he's outlining his reputation, and he's pleading his case in this sort of faux court. And so Zed basically says, so if you want to jump out, then you get past them, you can be free. But if you don't, you die. And the thing is, they begin jumping him out, and he's doing well, but Zed decides to still kill him anyway. So they're now going to begin the jumping out process, right? And we have the 4 at the top of the screen, and then we have all these other guys who are going to jump him. And he's still seething. David is still seething, and Styx is at the back, the one who told off on him with the headband. And he's, giving his spiel before, the full jump out. Elias here, there's that blank face. There's a blank face on the woman as well. And they don't hear him. It doesn't matter. They have already made up in their minds what they're going to do. So right now it's all entertainment. It's almost like we as the viewing audience is just watching this go on just for fun or just because it's part of the process. But once they came there to that place, they had already made up their minds to kill him. So there's him experiencing the jump out. He's really successful. He does a good job of defending himself. So somewhere he got some skills, but he's not going to be successful in the end. So he's not going to be able to overcome his own setback. And one of the guys tells him, "Run, David, run," right before they kill him. And this is Zed right here, who is pointing a gun. So, Zed is not even a man of his own word, in a sense, right? That he said that if he won, if he did well, that he could leave, he would be free. And David believed him. So, it's interesting how they say there's a code, but they don't really adhere to their own code. They don't really adhere to the integrity of their own code, right? If your word was you can go, then if you are successful in the jump out, then you should be able to do it. It's very interesting also that this woman standing here, who is a federal agent, undercover federal agent, is just not moved at all. And you wonder how long she's been part of this exercise, this enterprise, because the writer-director doesn't really capture her emotionally. She's not emotional. It's counter to her nature not to be emotional, and she is definitely not emotional. And so David Zed here is very focused in his goal to kill David. I also thought it was interesting that it's Zed who is pulling the trigger, the boss man. And usually the boss man is instructing the number 2 or anyone under him to shoot the gun. Because remember, the boss man ultimately likes to have his hands clean, right? You're going to hear Michael say later, when Billy offers to help him while he's undercover, offers his services, Michael basically says, no, I got to keep this clean. So he was so preoccupied with trying to save his own partner that he didn't even want him part of it. And so it's interesting that Zed is the one holding a gun and is going to shoot David, and not Elias, or not even an enforcer type of person who holds a gun, meaning that the leader is honestly not leading. That really he's no different than all the people around him. He's no different. He's just an enforcer, just like everybody else. But he's calling himself a boss, and everyone is referring to him as a boss. It's very interesting, though. So here we have David on the ground. He's been shot. And then Zed is going to come over him and say, blood in, blood out, and shoot him again. This is him looking down on whom he perceives as an enemy now and resolving it. So again, the setback was referencing to him as a snitch. Someone witnessed him talking to his brother, who is a cop. And so we got to resolve this setback, because we cannot have any future issues, right? So then they would fit, if we were looking at the 7 stages of setback, he would be the correcting agent. He's not going to suffer correction. He's not going to go through correction, but he's going to correct the issue of having a snitch among us, having a mole among us, because he's correcting something before it could become a problem. Meaning that if they let him go and stay with his brother Michael, then he could truly become a snitch and become someone that they have to place in protective custody, and then turn evidence against him, plead out, anything like that. So this pleading out would have been, had he lived, this pleading out that he was doing with Zed and Elias would have been the equivalent of a plead out with, say, a district attorney, prosecuting attorney, etc. I think this scene here is the most gives the most impact in terms of affecting our senses, our visual senses, our emotions, our thinking, because Blood Out, like many other films that explore the same subject matter, reflects a cautionary tale. And like I noted, there was something in David's understanding that he skipped. He skipped a lesson about this life, that he did not get the kind of understanding, because even before you go and find the gang, you know about gangs. You hear the common statements about gangs. You hear the violence about gangs. You usually know someone who is a gang member. And so to not ask questions, to not really get a good understanding, what you see here is the result of this, that he missed that opportunity to really think and reflect on the decision. And then the punishment was attaching something to him that did not belong, meaning that they were calling him a snitch. And later you're going to hear the cops call him a stool pigeon. And so then feeling the pain of that in you so much to the point that you have to defend yourself. You have to say, this is not me. You're putting something on me that does not apply to me. I've been here for you the whole time. I've been doing all of this for you the whole time. And you're going to treat me like this when I've treated you with honor? That's the pain of it, right? And so then there's no room. Zed leaves no room for David to prove himself, other than the jumping out, right? He leaves no room for him to prove himself, and leaving room for him to prove himself is the correction phase, the correction stage, right? That if you can prove yourself through correction, through passing other tests, and you're going to see Michael pass the types of tests that Elias is going to give him, not to be corrected, but just to prove his loyalty. If he was able to do that, he might not be dead now. He might have still been jumped in and or jumped out to the point that it left him physically, abused, but he might still be alive. And the idea that he's not able to be corrected from a setback initially that he created when he joined the gang, but also a setback that was projected onto him to the point that he could not defend his honor to the point that he could remain alive. So we have Anthony looking at him also. There's a little bit more concern on his face, but he's silenced. There's more concern on his face than Zed's face, Elias' face, the woman's face, but you can't speak. And before you get to a place at this age and in this environment of feeling that you cannot speak, this must have been part of your childhood. You attract what you are. You attract what you know. You usually run to environments that are familiar. So maybe in his background, in his narrative history, and we don't get that other than he retelling issues that he has with his sister while he's talking to Michael, and Michael going over issues that he's had with his brother and his mother. Other than that, we don't have a window, a lens into his history for us to really understand his face here. The writer-director doesn't give us much more than the fact that he's Anthony. He works directly with Elias. His partner is going to be Squad. He's going to be the one with the two long braids. And he's concerned. I will say this, that he talks about it in ways kind of like a slip of the tongue. And so something about the situation concerns him, but he's silenced. And when you're silenced, that is a setback on its own. That it's hard for you to come out of what it is that you need to come out of. And you usually need something to fight for. So even though his sister is struggling and he doesn't want to help her to kill herself, that's honestly not enough for him to pull himself out of his silence. It is only when Michael comes along and says he wants to help her, because he discovers that his sister, Anthony here that you see on the screen, his sister is David's pregnant girlfriend. And because David gave her the mother's ring, and he wanted to marry her. He's so concerned. Michael is so concerned about her that he wants to try to get her to safety. So it's not the brother who's trying to get the sister to safety. It's someone completely outside of their environment coming in and wanting to get her to safety. All right, so hopefully you were able to gain some insight from this lecture. Please like, subscribe, and like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can visit my website, reginawhyfavors.com. You can always send me an email. Please purchase the book when it comes out. It's going to come out approximately August 2021. I needed to make some changes to it and do some final editing. So the book title is Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you for listening to this audio. Have a great day.